Welcome back, guys. Just Paul again, and welcome to the video for day 3 of the 2025 Cheltenham Festival. Day 1 is now in the books yesterday. Really interesting day. Obviously, the events of the Champion Hurdle will live long in the memory. Constitution Hill's unbeaten record is now gone. He fell. Brighter days ahead. The big fancy was beaten, to be honest with you, even before the carnage at the last when Stateman was going to retain and he fell. And bit of carnage over there. We managed to get a couple of winners in there. Lossymouth, she's obviously, as I said, she's just a different class to any mare around at the moment. And Haiti Colors did it really, really well in the last. Really happy with that one. Romeo Coolio ran a really solid race in third. The only thing I wish is on that one, after Work Ahead went, I just wish they made a bit more of him, because the way he stayed on right to the line, he wouldn't have won, but I think he would have been a bit closer. Loda Sud, I've got no idea what happened there. He was leading at the last and ended up fourth, but obviously it was a blanket finish. Again, a bit of a nuts race, that one there. Total Luck made a bit of bad mistake 2 out when making headway. Don't think he would have won it anyway, but he was pretty solid. And the Changing Man run an absolute screamer in a second. It was just a bit of a handicap block for Lucinda Russell on that one. But here we go now on to day 3, which is obviously going to be run on the new course after this first 2 days is on the old course. And it starts with the 120, which is the Mers Novices Hurdle, grade 2 over 2 mile 1. And this is a very, very hard race this year. I've been very keen a long time, even up to a bumper last year on Maureen for Willie Mullins. Patrick Mullins takes a ride here. The one bumper run last year was superb. Picked up an issue after it and was off the track for a year, basically. Returned in January, won on Hurdle's debut. One thing about it, she's got a massive engine on her, this one. Not only is she a gorgeous looking horse, she's got a huge engine. Didn't jump particularly well that day, if I'm being honest. But there's just something about her. You can see why she's so much, towards like the head of the market even after that, because there's just something unbelievably classy about her. I'm hoping she'll run a race, but for the win, after one hurdle start, she would have had to come on absolutely boatloads for it. If the price is right, I'm going to have a bit of play on her anyway, because I'd kick myself if it didn't. For the win purposes, I just think there's something else there. Now, Aurora Vega is interesting because this one is 10 to 1. But this is the pick of Paul Townend. Obviously, really, really strong bumper form last year. And bar second hurdle run, this one, when got pulled up at long odds on and turned out to be quite ill afterwards, has actually improved every single race. I suspect she's going to need further than this. But if it's a true run race, which Maureen might actually set really good fractions, must have a good chance at a good price. 6.5 is interesting for the Cromwell Yard. Keith Donoghue taking the ride. Very, very good flat horse this. And again, only one hurdle start, but did it really well and literally could be anything. I am a bit dubious about that, really, because there was a couple yesterday I said where it was like they've only had one run. It could be anything, could be nothing, like July Flowers, etc. Turns out wasn't up to that level. So at the lightly short price, that is a bit of a concern for me on 6.5 for all. Everything seems to be saying that she's high quality. Britain actually have a good chance in here with Jubilee Alpha for Paul Nicholls and Harry Cobden. She was placed in a grade 2 bumper last year, really solid bumper form. And she's been running below this level around listed Mers races, and she's run well in all 3, winning 2 of them. Seems to go on the ground. She'll have to take another step forward, you would think. Bear in mind, she's been mixing it up at listed level, but there's a good chance she might be able to, now with that experience, put a good effort forward. But for the winner, I'm actually going for the 4-year-old in here, which is Galileo Dame for Joseph O'Brien. JJ Slevin taking the ride. No, she hasn't won over hurdles, but she took a huge step forward last time and was only just beaten in a grade 1. Like another 20 yards, she would have won. So it is strange to be picking a horse that hasn't won, but it's more she's been improving with every run. And that grade 1 form is as solid as it gets, really. Now, more interesting, she gets in off 10 stone 8 because she gets the 4-year-old weight allowance as well. So she's got no weight. Anything bred by, like in the what they call, even though it's in the name, the Galileo bloodline, as it would be, is always going to improve with racing. And I think the hill, adding a bit of stamina to this, really brings her into it. So she is the selection. 1, 2, 3 then for the Mers Novices hurdle. Galileo Dame from, I'm going to put Maureen in there, and Aurora Vega. The 2 o'clock is the Jack Richards Novices Handicap Chase. God, if they keep changing the name of these races, this time in 10 years, I won't have a clue about the old form. This is a grade 2 over 2 mile, 4 furlongs. This has been really hard as well. The likes of Jordan's and Jaguar, who we'll get into later, were in this. Then this is going to be the target. Then they've moved to another one. It makes it hard, but to be honest, the top of the market seems to be the place to look here. Nürburgring for Joseph O'Brien, JJ Slevin, has been a real talking horse in this race. Really high-class hurdler, but his chase form, you can only say it's been patchy at best. He's on a nice mark. First time at this trip, and you've got to hope that it unlocks some improvement. But as I said yesterday, unless it's been getting pulled back, running over the wrong trip, which unless you know something, there's no way of knowing. On burr form alone, over fences at least, he's just a bit shy of what's needed. What I like the look of here is Firefox for Gordon Elliott. Jack Kennedy takes the ride. Came third in the Supreme Novice last year. It was a really, really good run, that. And he's always been getting pitched in at group level. So he's clearly thought of as like a graded group level horse. Now, over a shorter trip, he's been running well, dropping out of it, running well late on. I think the 2 mile 4 trip might be exactly what he needs at this stage of his career. So you've got to give a big, he ticks all the boxes in that sense, Firefox. Springwell Bay for the O'Neills, John Joe O'Neill Jr. Dryden, is a course and distance winner. Hasn't always looked entirely straightforward for me, and does have the burden of carrying the 11 stone 12 top weight, and that is tempering enthusiasm, shall we say, on what he's achieved against some that potentially are well handicapped and lurking. Pick Rock is a fascinating horse, really, for Ben Paulin. Ben Jones takes the ride. Ben Jones, obviously fresh from his win on day 1 on Haiti Couleur. Got in off a lovely weight here, 10 stone 9. So getting, 1 stone 3 off Springwell Bay, which is a colossal amount of weight, it's got to be said. He fell on his chase debut, which wasn't a great start. To be honest, it wasn't really a fall. It was more of like a sprawl on landing. I always check that out when they say it fell, because there's a difference between a fall and a fall. Do you know what I mean? Like Constitution Hill yesterday was a fall. He literally just booted the hurdle out and came crashing down. This was more like a sprawl. As I said, he fell on debut, had 2 good seconds since, and is a nice weight. Now, one thing we've learned about Ben Paulin during the summer is he does love a handicap plot. So if he's just been kept ticking over, ready for these big spring targets, he could be a danger to all Pick Rock. I could see him running on and doing well at the end. Now, the really fascinating horse in this one is Asian Master. Willie Mullins trained, but Tom Costello claiming 7, taking the ride. I think that's quite a bit of shrewd placing that from Willie Mullins, and especially to book the claimer on it. He really, really good hurdler. You probably saw it in the Supreme last year. Came there cruising, got outpaced, but stayed on really well to the line. Really good run. He's been staying on well over, as I said, over 2 miles. And that includes over fences. Now, this horse is bred by Scirocco. Now, with the Scirocco horses, they always need a little bit further than 2 miles. There's good speed, stamina in that profile. So I think this extra 3 furlongs, really, 4 furlongs over what he's been doing, I think that is quite telling. I think that's actually a really good move. I cannot separate Firefox and Asian Master, to be honest with you, because again, if you look through Asian Master came 4th in the Supreme, Firefox came 3rd. They're really, it's so similar, it's scary. But I am going to just side with Firefox on the basis of he's been kept up to graded level all season. So I think he could have that little bit more to come, but there's really nothing separating them. 1, 2, 3 then for the Jack Richards, Firefox from Asian Master, and I'm going to put Pick Rock in there as well. The 240 is a horror story race. The Pertemps final, handicap hurdle, class 1, 3 mile. It's just a nightmare. And what makes it even more of a nightmare here is the top two in the market, it seems, or two of the top three are JP McManus trained. So what we're getting here is, because of his record in it, we do get a false market in some of these races where everyone, it's not a bad strategy, just punts the hell out of the McManus horses. Jericho de Repene is the favourite here. Now, I really fancied that in the Supreme last year, and it bombed badly. Obviously, there was excuses. The entire Henderson yard was under a cloud, and in the last 2 days, they withdrew everything. The concern I've got here is, and while as much as I love the horse, he's got no real form and has pulled up twice, even since last Cheltenham, when the yard got back into form. He was better up to 3 mile latest, running on, but beaten a long way in a much worse race than this at Exeter. He's got quite a big weight with 11 stone 6, but he's 4-1 favourite. And again, unless this is some type of massive long-term plot, bare form alone, I just don't see it for as much as I love the horse. Win some, lose some. I can actually make a case for this McManus horse. Padraig Roach trains. Mark Walsh has picked up the ride on this. 6 years old, good age for a Pertemps. Big weight with 11 stone 9, but it was a career best winning at 3 mile last time. And what I liked about that was his first 3 mile start. Been doing well, and a massive improvement stepped up to this trip in December. What he actually did there was been put away since, but go back through his back form, and the better ground is the key to this, and it's likely to be better ground. So I can make a massive case for win some, lose some. The big money horse has been Will the Wise for the Cromwell Yard, Donahue taking the ride. And I think the interesting part about this one is again, like with Win Some Lose Some, a big improvement, stepped up to 3 mile the last two. He won the last one as well. It was a real big jump forward in improvements. Now, the other bit that makes this one stand out, and people are probably jumping on, is he has placed form behind Final Demand over Shorter last season. Now, Final Demand is favourite for the first race hit today, day 2. So how that works out, we don't know. But this one has taken a massive step forward, and there does seem to be money down for it, and that could be quite telling. Two that I think are decent bets at really big prices, starting with Patter Merchant, Gordon Elliott, Jack Kennedy. This is the Jigginstown runner. They can run away with a handicap every now and then. Got in off 11.5, so a really nice weight. He's been running well without winning, but they're all in big field handicaps. So he's got a real taste and proves he can act around these big field. He's only ever won a maiden, which is a concern. The ground is an unknown, but he's been running well. And as I said, if the handbrake has been on in the bigger fields, keep the mark down, he's the type who could take a big step forward here with a liking for the conditions. Now, the one that's a massive price at 20-1 for me is Harbour Lake for Alan King. Tom Cannon takes the ride. He was a good second over course and distance last April on good ground. Just found one better handicap than him on the day. He's run well in all 3 runs since that race this season, run well in all of them. He's an extreme hold-up horse. Now, as I said yesterday, that can either work massively with you or it can work massively against you, that. But with the pace on this, usually absolutely breakneck, he's the type with a lot of bookies paying like top 7. He's the type that can certainly come through and pick up the pieces. It's really hard, but 1, 2, 3 for the Pertemps final. I'm going to go with Win Some, Lose Some from Will the Wise, and I'm going to throw in Harbour Lake as well because I think his price is too big. The 320 is the Ryanair Chase, Grade 2, 2 mile 1. It's a small but really select field this year. The honourable mentions first. You've got to mention the previous champ, Envoy LN, Henry de Bromhead, Rachel Blackmore. Has obviously showed a real liking for Cheltenham, but he's another year older now, and his overall profile is quite hit and miss. I think he could be better needing 3 mile nowadays because he's hitting 11. So he could run a really good race. He could run a stinky. You don't know what you're going to get with him at this moment in time. Jello has been really good this season for Charlie Deutsch and Venetia Williams, though I suspect he is better when the ground's like a bog, and I don't think he's going to get his ground. Now, one who is interesting at a big price is Jungle Boogie. Danny Mullins has taken the ride on this. If you watch the actual Gold Cup last year, he was bang there coming down the hill. Like, I thought, watching the race back, you would think he was going to hit the frame, made a colossal mistake, and it just knocked the wind out of him and he dropped back. He's been running well since then. Some really good runs, some not so good runs. And I think maybe the 2.5 mile trip around here, given how he ran in the Gold Cup, could be ideal. He's probably overpriced at 14-1. For all I think there might be some classier types and more importantly, some more speedier types ahead of him. Protectorat, you've got to mention Protectorat. Previous winner of this race, placed in Gold Cups. The Skeltons. The horses have been running decent. Not great, but decent on day one. That would be a slight concern. One last time I did everything really, really well. Won in this race before, placed in a Gold Cup. Another year older. Is there going to be some younger horses? Possibly. But usually you can set your clock by Protectorat. And I think he's the type. He's got to run a really solid race. For all I've got a feeling there's going to be a couple that might just improve him past him. The one who is a very short price favour here, understandably, is Factophile. He won the Browns Advisory last year, did it really well. And obviously he finished ahead of Galopin Des Champs, which you've got to give him credit for that. It was the time Galopin Des Champs always loses first time out. He barely ever wins first time out. And he's run okay since then. I was actually disappointed on his efforts behind Galopin Des Champs when he looked like he was coming there, and he's just not been finishing off his races properly for me this season. Could be the ground, could be the first season out after the RSA, as I'll call it. They call it the Browns now, the RSA. So many horses don't always kick on the next season. I don't think it's that. He's been running well, and you've got to remember Galopin Des Champs is the best we've seen in a hell of a long time. Since this guy, maybe. But I just realised I got that on. So Galopin's probably the best since him. I just think the reaching for the 2 mile forward, because they know they can't be Galopin Des Champs. No disrespect to that. But this horse has seemed to be all about stamina, even in the bumper form from a couple of years ago. And it makes me worry if the ground is on the fast side, if a pacier horse could have him. And that's why I've gone, and it is a risk, with Il Est Français. The George sets a home combination in France. James Reevely takes the ride. As I said in the multiple video, when he's good, he is very, very, very good. Like we saw when he won the Corto Star Novices at Cheltenham, Kempton 2 seasons ago. Went from the front and he destroyed them. Absolutely amazing. One of the best performances I've seen. And that's no word of a lie. Never since Long Run over there. That was going back as well. Has absolutely bombed out on 3 occasions. And he does seem, when he has a bad one, and he does have an issue with bleeding. That is a huge concern, I won't lie. Saying that, they've kept the powder relatively fresh this year. He blew up on the first race back, didn't happen. They sent him over for the King George, and he run an absolute screamer in second. I think probably ran with the choke out for a bit too long. But the key thing was there, by the large, his jumping was incredible. He's got a lovely movement on him as well, moves really well. And while people are saying he's never run at the horse, he's never done this, that, and the other, he strikes me as the type who will be able to run well here. He really, really reminds me of a horse going back 20 years ago. Some of you may remember him, called Jeu de Cochet. Different type of horse, that one got held up, but his movements is so similar. And he took really well to Cheltenham. He won a Cotswold Chase and got the worst ride in history to come second in an RSA. But I just think Il Est Français, if they keep hold of him for just a bit longer and just build him up, and the fact that like Protectorat is in there and Jello sometimes goes forward, he might just be able to conserve a bit. He won't have to go as hard. I'd like to see him just sit on the lead or off the lead for the first like half mile down the hill and take it up on the second circuit and run the finish out of him. He doesn't want to go too early because if it turns into a stamina test, it will benefit Factor File. But at the likely prices, like Factor File at the moment's like even money, 11 to 10. I just think Il Francais at 7 to 2 is a bit of value, and he is incredibly classy horse. So that's a 1, 2, 3. I think it's going to be for me. Il Francais from Factor File. And do you know what? I'm actually going to put Jungle Boogie in there because I think he's overpriced at 14s. The 4 o'clock is the Stayers Hurdle, and I'm going to make one of the most heartbreaking decisions I'm ever going to make, probably, in this race. And that is, I'm going against the horse that tipped up last year. And the horse that won me a pretty penny last year. Dangerous strategy, I know, but sometimes you've got to go with your head, not your heart. We'll start with the reigning champion, T. Hoopu, Gordon Elliott, Jack Kennedy. Won this last year. You could probably tell from the video, I've never been as confident on a Stayers horse since like the Big Bucks days. He just had absolutely everything. He was unlucky, got the shocking ride the year before that by Davy Russell. I think he'll even tell you that, and got what he needed. And won it going away doing handstands. My concern is he's only had that one run earlier this season, bar a doss around in the late summer, and was, don't get me wrong, there's no discrediting it, especially after what she did yesterday. He got absolutely destroyed by Lossiemouth, which can happen. The concern for me has not been seen since. Now, if you look at his running schedule, the way he's done it in previous years, he doesn't really go that long for all he can go well fresh. There was talk in January that he had a setback in December, and in January he was going to come back into work late January. If that is true, then that's not the ideal prep. I also suspect he's better on softer ground, and I don't think he's necessarily going to get that here. And that at a price now 11 to 10, 6 to 4. There's good improving horses in it, and that's what's just making me temper enthusiasm. Home by the Lee, who chased him home last year, Joseph O'Brien, JJ Slevin. This horse is a much better horse this year. I don't know what was fully wrong with him last year, but whatever it is, he's clearly over it this year. He's winning races, he's running well in other ones, and he's being consistent. That consistency was massively missing last year. Proven Grade 1 performer, probably wants a bit more dig in the ground, but very, very rock solid. He placed last year when everything wasn't right, but has definitely gone forward another £6 or £7 this year. Lucky Place is interesting for Nicky Henderson, Nico de Boinville. He was placed in the Coral last year, doing all of his best work at the end, and won the Relkeel Hurdler over 2.5 mile in really taking fashion. Cruised into it, survived a bit of a mistake actually, and still came away. He then went on and won the Ascot Hurdle as well, all over this intermediate trip. 3 mile for the first time. It's certainly looking like it's within his compass. That is for certain. Whether it fully is, I don't know, especially on the new course. But you can see why they've gone for this race, and he's definitely improving. Another one who's improving is the Wall Park, Gordon Elliott and Mark Walsh taking the ride, obviously in the JP colours. Third in the long walk last time. Really, really good effort. They were beaten fair and square by Crambo's in here. Crambo, the time to get him his first time out, run since then has just gone, and it's hard to make a case for him for, again, all I love the horse. Wall Park won a course and distance handicap in November, did it really well. But this isn't a handicap, this is a Grade 1. So I can see him running well like he did in the long walk, but maybe something comes past him. Langadan has got to be the fly in the ointment here. This horse does not know how to run a race until March. Like anything he does before, forget it, until March, and he comes alive. Hence those, he's become a bit of a legend now in the Coral Cup, hasn't he? But the vibes from the Skelton Yards is, yeah, he's definitely showing a bit more the last few weeks, but unless they're being incredibly coy, I'm not sure the 3 mile around here in a Grade 1 is what he really wants, especially being another year older. And Rocky's Diamond's interesting here for the Keeley yard, Shane Fitzgerald taking the ride. He's proven himself to be an absolutely dour stayer. A dour stayer, doesn't jump the best, but gallops all over them. I don't think the ground is going to be perfect for him, but if they go a pace, he's the type at 20-1 who could be running on at the end. But for the win, I am actually going to go with Home by the Lee. He's proven he can go well around here. He's had placed efforts here in the past, run really well this season, and he just looks a different horse. There wasn't much between Tiupu and him last year, and even on all Burr form, that slight improvement will bring him closer. And with Tiupu, he could go and walk this, but I just don't know if he's had the ideal prep, so it breaks my heart to abandon him. But for the 1, 2, 3, Home by the Lee from Tiupu, and I'm going to put Lucky Place in there too. Which brings us to the 440, which is the plate chase. Again, it's been a nightmare with the place and the Jack Richards because it's exactly the same profile. This is a Class 1 chase. That one's a 2.5 mile handicap, and it's been, where's everyone going? So until this morning, it ain't been clear, really. One I really like here, and I think is very overpriced, is Jordan's for Joseph O'Brien and JJ Slevin. 3 for 4 over fences, all in graded races, so they clearly think a lot of him. He's been finishing really well over 2 mile 2, 2 mile 3, and he's been improving with each run. I think the extra furlong here and the hill will play into his favour, and he's one of two. If there was a graded horse in a handicap type thing, he's that style, do you know what I mean? That's how he's been throughout the season, and I think he is a proper graded horse, and I think next year, looking at his breeding, he'll be even better again. Jordan's is a huge price for me. Ginny's Destiny, you've got to mention that one. Paul Nicholls, Harry Cobden, multiple time course and distance winner, has run well at the festival a couple of times before. The concern has just been in no form all season, like literally not put in a single noteworthy performance. For all he loves the course, on that form at the moment, unless Paul Nicholls has got a magic wand, it's hard to give a compelling case for him. Shake 'em Up Harry obviously tipped it up last year when won this race. Ben Paulin takes the ride. Interestingly, has actually booked Callum Pritchard to ride, claiming some weight off. No Ben Jones on this one. He's £3 lower this year as well, and with him claiming, so he's effectively like half a stone better off than what he was last year. But the faster ground would have to be a massive negative, and he, like Ginny's Destiny, has been bang out of form. So that's going to be a bit of a concern. One who could run well at a huge price is Gemerond for Venetia William and Charlie Deutsch. Won over course and distance and on this ground in December, in a December handicap of £9 lower. So he's up £9 here, but that was a really taken performance. And that day, when they asked about like the improved form, they said appreciated the better ground. Not been as good on different runs around that, but he's hopefully got the better ground here. And I think that is a really, really big price as well. I think there's a bit of value there. Now, the key form line here, and there's nothing really between them, is between Jaguar and Masaccio. Now, Jaguar, Ollie Greenall, Guerrero combined trained, John Joe O'Neill Jr. taking the ride. Those who follow my WhatsApp service knew that in January, I tipped that up massively the day before the race on trials day. I really fancied it. I'd heard some different stuff off different people saying, yeah, this is going to bring about a lot of improvements. He was gambled in that day and won. It was a really, really taken performance, especially how he travelled through the race. He's got in here off 10 stone 10. It's a lovely weight in there. And he is a rock solid favourite, I think, in this one. Now, his form line really ties in with Masaccio, Alan King, Tom Cannon taking the ride. He was a rallying third behind Jaguar last time. He was more prominent. Jaguar came through. He made a bit of a mistake, dropped back, and was rallying all the way to the line. He's now actually £8 better off with Jaguar. So if you look at the distance beaten and that, there's nothing between them, and they've got form in first and third in the same race. My concern, I would say, is he's only got one win in his last 9, so he inevitably makes a big mistake, but he is weighted to be bang there if everything goes, all things being equal. I do think, though, Jaguar may progress again, and that makes him just slightly the pick. 1, 2, 3 in the plate chase, Jaguar from Jordan's. You've got to have an each way on Jordan's as a saver, I would say here. And I'm actually going to put in Gemahond as well, because I think that, again, is far too big a price for this race. So Jaguar from Jordan's and Gemahond. Which brings us to the conclusion of day 3, which is the 520, which is the Kim Muir Amateur Riders Chase, Class 2, 3 Mile 2. It's almost like a Gold Cup for amateur riders, really, along with the Fox Hunter. I hate this race. You never know what's going to happen. But it's not surprising. They have started to come for the McManus horses. The McManus has an amazing record in this race. Also had some blowouts in this race, but you've got to kind of think about what's going on here. Johnny Who, O'Neill trained, Derek O'Connor, who is like the main amateur rider that JP goes to, rides. He has shown absolutely nothing in 3 starts this year. Third of third, third of fourth, third of 6. On 10 stone, 11 stone 10. Which, okay, not the very top weight, but he's shown absolutely nothing, but the money has come in spades. So, again, unless they've been handbraking it over shorter and everyone knows something on all known form, and he's 3-1 as I'm saying this now. Now, the bookies might push him out depending on what happens in the next few days, but I just, a bit like Krebley when I said it on day 1, I said I just can't have it. And he went off a short price and got battered. Sam Majest is in here for Willie Mullins, Patrick Mullins taking the ride, JP McManus again. Now, I could understand making a case for him. I know he's got top weight 11-12, 2 for 3 over fences and over this trip. And does look a classy horse. I can make more of a case for him than Johnny Who, but the money seems to all be for Johnny Who, and it's causing me problems. One who is a massive price for me at 33-1, and I think some of the bookies play top 5 and 6. Fantastic Lady, Nicky Henderson, Hendrick takes her, I don't know who he is, got top weight off 12 stone, but is ultra consistent. But this is the thing you've got to look out for and say, everyone go and do it now. Look at this horse's form in the spring compared to the rest of the year. He does nothing through the spring, through the winter, comes alive in the spring. 33-1 is massive, I think, on this one, all things being equal. Mint Boy is in here for Gavin Cromwell. O'Neill taking the ride on this one. Bits and pieces of form, but remarkably inconsistent. If he puts it in on the day, could absolutely make a case for it. Midnight R. Fred, Flavin train McFarlane rides. Good second over 3 Mile 4 here back in April, and a good second in October 23 over the course and distance. 2 solid runs, goes on any ground. I think that one's going to make the frame. I've got a feeling as well. And that one is a nice price at around 10-1. Musicatara, Gordon Elliott, James taking the ride, capable on his day, but again, massively inconsistent. Now, the one we've got to finish on here is Walking on Air, because there would be no better story for the week. Brown trained, Alan O'Sullivan rides, brother of Michael O'Sullivan. Good 5th in the Pertemps hurdle 2 years ago. Would have won latest, I think, but fell at the last. Never won over fences, which is a concern. Clearly got an engine, but just imagine if that horse win, not just from a story, from the crowd, for everything. I would never decry him winning that. And I'm not going to tip him up, because that's where my head's rolling my heart. But there will always be a part if you come into the last. If he was going to beat yours, you'd be thinking, yeah, go on, fair dues. Know what I mean? Some things go above punting, really. But I think he's going to run a really solid race, as long as that fall at the last hasn't left a mark. But for the win, I'm actually going to go with Sam Majest. Willie Mullins, Patrick Mullins, John Joe O'Neill. As I said, 2 for 3 over fences over this trip. Looks a good stayer, but I'm going to put up some big prices for the places as well. So 1, 2, 3, then in the Kim Muir Amateur Riders, Sam Majest from Midnight R. Fred, and Joe, I'm going to put up Fantastic Lady in there as well at 33-1. So that's it for day 3, guys. Good luck on day 2. That's starting in an hour or so. And I will see you tomorrow for day 4, the final day. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.